Hey racers, hope you had a great weekend and hopefully got out and did some riding. Today's live stream is heart rate monitors for motocross. So whether you should be using them or not, and if you've got one, how to be able to get the most out of it to improve your riding and your racing. So first of all, what does a heart rate monitor do? Simply tracks your heart rate. So anytime you elevate your level of intensity, elevate your level of output effort that you're putting in, your heart rate will go up. Anytime you reduce that, your heart rate will start to go down. So your heart rate will be at its lowest point when you're sleeping, when you first get up in the morning, your resting heart rate. Hey Riley, and then that will elevate. So if you go out riding, go out racing on the weekend, that's when you're going to start. If you've got a heart rate monitor, that's when you're going to see some really high heart rate numbers. So to work out your maximum heart rate, the old formula that's used is 220 take your age. So if you're 20 years old, 220 take 20 is 200. So theoretically, hey Simon, that's your maximum level of heart rate, okay, or max heart rate. That can change though, depending on everyone. Okay, that's just a rough formula to get you in the ballpark. It's an individual thing. But overall, your heart rate is going to spike, is going to go up. You're going to see some big numbers. Anytime you're physically exerting yourself to a high level, or there's a high level of intensity where you're asking the most of your body. So what I thought I would go through here today is just what to look for with your heart rate to see whether you're actually making improvements or not, whether that's with your training, with your riding, with your fitness. So the fitter you get, the harder it is to get your heart rate up. So what that means is you have to push a lot harder and push yourself a lot further physically to be able to get your heart rate up. The intensity has to be a lot higher. So if I've got someone, for example, let's say I'm working with a rider and we get them to, do a lap of the park, okay? And the park's, 3 kilometers long. If I've got someone who's done absolutely no training, okay, they've just come straight off the couch, chances are just walking around the park is going to get their heart rate up, okay? And you're going to start to see some high numbers just from walking around. Whereas if I have a rider that is relatively fit, that's been maybe doing a bit of running, a bit of cardio, a bit of weight work, they've been doing some training, walking around the park is not going to elevate their heart rate too far, okay? So the fitter you become, the more efficient your body is, and the more efficient it is, the less it has to pump its heart. It doesn't have to work overtime. It's a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. So what that means is it's not beating as much. So you can push yourself a lot further. You can run a lot harder. You can ride a lot harder to get yourself up to a higher heart rate. If you're fitter, your heart rate will come down to a resting heart rate, or your resting heart rate, or a lower level of lower heart rate, quicker. So what that means, a good way, like an example of this is, let's say you're down at the park doing sprints, okay, running, and you're doing a 100-meter sprint and then resting for a minute, 100-meter sprint and then rest for a minute. What you'll find, hey Adam, is as you get fitter, that your body will recover a lot quicker. You'll feel recharged and energized and ready to go, and your heart rate will drop a lot quicker in that minute of rest. Compared to if you're unfit and you just come off the couch, that minute's not going to feel like enough for you. And you're going to find it's very hard for you to get your heart rate down. Your heart rate might be just as high through that whole minute of rest as what it was from doing the actual run. So the fitter you get, the quicker your heart rate comes down and you can recharge and then go again. Generally, the fitter you are, the higher you can maintain a higher heart rate. Okay, you can stay at those higher heart rates or higher numbers for a longer period of time consistently. The fitter you get, the lower your resting heart rate will get. So when you wake up in the morning, it's the best time to test your resting heart rate. If you've got like an Apple Watch or a Garmin or a Fitbit or whatever's monitoring your heart rate, you can probably get it through the night, and that will just give you a readout for it. But your resting heart rate will become lower. The fitter you get, the lower your resting heart rate. And that's because, your heart is getting more efficient at doing the things that it needs to do. So it doesn't have to work as hard to just keep you alive. So that's the numbers of heart rates. I thought it would be more applicable, a bit more interesting to put the common mistakes that I see with heart rate monitors. I'm not a number one fan of heart rate monitors, but at the same time, I don't disregard their value altogether. So the common mistakes that I see with riders with heart rate monitors is they have too much data that's not relevant to their actual goal. Hey, Kevin. So like back in the day, even if you go back 20 years, getting data on training just for the day-to-day person was quite hard, right? You didn't have Garmin watches and GPSs, and you're running this many kilometers an hour, and you're resting heart rate and testing VO2 max and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't readily available by just buying a watch or buying a device which is a couple $100 or a few $100 and having all this information. And now we have that, which is great, which is awesome. It's definitely progression and something that helps people to be able to train better or to get fitter by having more information, which is awesome. But I feel like the problem we have now with a lot of riders is we've got too much data and too much information. It's too easy to get a whole bunch of numbers for everything. So at the end of the day, like even if you just look at heart rate, or if you've got a Garmin watch or an Apple watch or a Fitbit, there's so much stuff you can track, right? You can track, I think the new Apple Watch, you can test I'm pretty sure it says on there, you can test your VO2 max, if I remember correctly. But anyway, I may or may not be right on that. Maybe you can confirm in the comments if you've got one. But you can test your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability. You can get your peak heart rate, your lowest heart rate for the day. Okay, you can have a look at a workout and go, okay, when did my heart rate peak? When was it at its lowest? How quickly did I recover? So many different data points that you can get. You can track how many steps you do in a day, how many calories do you burn, how many kilometers you've walked, how much you've run. Sleep, you can look at how much deep sleep, how much light sleep, how much REM sleep, how much time you're awake during the night, how many hours of sleep you had together overall. You can track the food going in. Okay, there's plenty of apps for that. Check how many calories you're having and macronutrient breakdowns and all that sort of stuff. There's so much data that you can track. And if you try to track it all and keep an eye on any of it, you just drive yourself nuts because there's so much to look at. So the main thing with data is I'm not opposed to heart rate monitors. What I am opposed to, those people just tracking data for the sake of tracking data when it's not helping them to get towards their goal. So you always have to look at reverse engineer. What's your goal? What are you actually working to? Sorry, I got a pop up here. What's your goal? What are you actually working towards? Okay, what's the thing that's important for you? Do you want to lose 10 kilos? Do you want to put on 10 kilos? Are you working on, is your fitness shit? Okay, on race day, maybe you do 20-minute motos and you get 10 minutes in and then you're cooked. And then after that, you're just going through the motions for the other 10 minutes of the race. Are you working on riding at a higher intensity? Maybe you're going from motocross to enduro and you have trouble getting your heart rate up. Hey, Ben, and that's the problem, okay? Or maybe you're going to enduro and you're having trouble keeping your heart rate down, okay? So depending on what your goal is and what you want to work towards, then you have to go, okay, this is the thing I want to work towards. So let's say you're a motocross rider, you're working towards doing 20-minute motos, and you currently get 10 minutes in and then you feel stuffed. You run out of breath, you sit down more, your legs get sore, you get arm pump, all that sort of stuff. Then we have to reverse engineer from that and go, okay, what's causing this problem? Okay, and maybe the problem is you're overweight. Maybe you need to lose 10 kilos. Maybe that's really the problem. So then we go, okay, I need to lose 10 kilos to feel lighter on the bike so I don't run out of breath as quickly, so I can move around better. Okay, and so I maybe feel stronger. Okay, so then our key indicator is your body weight. Okay, we've got one key indicator, which is how long can I ride for at race pace? And then the indicator before that is, okay, I need to lose 10 kilos. I'm 90 kilos and I need to get down to 80 kilos. So the indicator that you need to be using each week to help you to get towards your goal is, are you riding longer at a race intensity? And did you lose weight? They're your two main indicators, okay? They're the things that are gonna make sure that you're on track. Now, you could track your resting heart rate and you could track your heart rate variability and you could track your max heart rate and you could track the amount of steps that you do each day. But in terms of helping you to lose weight, they're not the main indicators. Okay, that's not what your level of heart rate or your resting heart rate is not necessarily going to tell you if you've lost weight or not. Okay, it's not the most important indicator. So a lot of us have too much information and too much data. So what I encourage you to do is to cut away all the stuff that's not really important. If that means not wearing your Garmin watch and not wearing your Apple Watch, then do that, or turning the app off so it doesn't give you the stats 24/7. Then do that. Just pick the things that are most important to getting you towards your goal. Just make sure you have 2 or 3 data points which are the most relevant to your goal, okay, and get rid of all the other stuff, because if anything, it's just confusing you and giving you false information that's not helping you to move towards your goal. Second thing is, data is only useful if it's tracked consistently. So I find this one a lot is because people try and track so much data, it's hard to keep tracking it consistently. Some days you wear your watch, some days you don't. Some days you don't look at your heart rate. Okay, some days you put your watch on during training, some days you don't. Data is only useful when you track it consistently. Okay, so if you're someone who's trying to lose 10 kilos to help with your riding, for example, if I just track that once every few months, it's not really relevant. right? Like it's not telling me it's not giving me enough feedback for me to make changes to see if I'm on the right path or not. So if I track that once a week, my body weight, then I can see whether what I'm doing nutrition wise, training wise, whatever you've tried is actually working or not. And if it's not working, then you know that something needs to change and you're not going to waste your time. Hey, Tim. So the data has to be tracked consistently. Okay, like if you just, as I said, if you just track your weight once and then never track it again, then you don't really know if what you're doing is working if you don't have a data point. So if you're going to track your heart rate and that's something you want to improve your resting heart rate, you want to improve your max heart rate or how long you can stay at your max heart rate for your VO2 max, you need to track it consistently and track it well consistently. It's not enough to just do hit and miss because then the data's pretty useless. Third thing is the purpose of data is it's feedback. Okay, that's really what data is feedback on what you're doing. And so we need to make sure that we're, first of all, tracking the right data, as I already said, but we have to make sure that the things we're doing to get that data are also consistent. So if I'm trying to lose, like if I'm trying to get fitter or I'm trying to get stronger, for example, to help me on the bike to make the bike feel lighter. And one week I train once, and the next week I train 3 times, and the week after that I do strongman, and the week after that I do Olympic lifting, and then one week I do 5 sessions, the next week I do no sessions. Then you're not going to get clear data on whether you actually got stronger or not because the inputs aren't consistent. You're not consistently training or following a consistent program or a consistent structure. And even if you did improve, let's say you did all this random stuff and you did improve by the end, you don't know what's working and what's not. So you can't make improvements on your program and on your training because you don't actually know what worked and what not because the variables were inconsistent. So what I do with my riders is our riders do 3 1-hour blocks of training each week. And I have it all mapped out for them, exactly what they need to do. And so I know when I'm looking at how many calories they're burning each week, okay, or when I'm looking at how their riding's improving, I can tell I've got consistency there in their training, okay, if they're doing their training and doing all the sessions which they should be. Hey, Stephen. First of all, I'm checking for consistency. If I've got consistency there, that's great. And if I know, hey, they've done their 3 sessions every week and they've done that for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, then I know that the training side is taken care of. They're doing the things that they need to do to be able to improve. If they're doing random different types of training all the time, which is what a lot of people do before they start working with me, then that's going to be a problem because you don't know what's working and what's not working. And if you do track data, the data again becomes fairly useless because you don't know what to work on to get those data numbers to improve. Okay, the variables are inconsistent; they're always changing. So you have to have consistent variables to have consistent data. It's exactly like making a chocolate cake. If you've got a really great chocolate cake recipe, then if you follow the recipe to the T, you're going to get the same chocolate cake every time. Okay, if you get that chocolate cake and you decide you want to try and make it better, the best way to try and make it better is just to improve one thing. Okay, maybe put in an extra egg, maybe you use a different type of flour, or put another cup of flour in, whatever it is. And then you look at the outcome and you go, is that better or worse? If it's better, great, you keep that as part of the recipe. If it's worse, then you take that out and you go back to normal. What a lot of riders and racers do with their training is they've got this data point, so it might be like, hey, I want to improve my riding and racing fitness. They do a whole heap of stuff. Okay, they're making a chocolate cake, but they're not even following a recipe. They've just got a whole heap of ingredients and put it in there. Then they go riding on the weekend and go, yeah, I'm still not improving. But then they go back and they don't know what to improve. They don't know what part of the recipe they need to change because they didn't have a recipe to start with in the first place. Just a whole bunch of stuff chucked together. And that's when you get frustrated, get a bit annoyed with your training because you're like, I've done all this work, but at the same time, it's hard for you to improve or make any adjustments because you've just chucked a whole heap of stuff in the bowl and hoped that it was going to work. So that's it for today's call. I guess the real thing is just deciding whether a heart rate monitor is something that you need or is it something that's actually confusing you and something you need to take away. If it's part of your goal and that's the thing that's important for you that you want to see improve and it's going to help you to get towards your goal, then great. But if it's not in those top 2 or 3 data points that you need to get towards your goal, and I'm confident that for a lot of you it's not going to be, then it's just information that's probably going to either confuse you, number one, or the other thing that I find that happens with riders is that their training may not be working and may not be improving on the bike, but they justify that it is working by going, oh, look, my heart rate's lower, or oh, my 5K time run's got better, or hey, I'm running a faster 5K time now, okay, or I can hold a higher pace while I'm running, or they use all of these different data points to justify that what they're doing is the right thing, even though it's not actually moving them towards their goal. Okay, yes, your resting heart rate might have got better. Okay, you might be able to hold your maximum heart rate more. Yes, maybe your 5K run got better. Maybe your pace while you're running is quicker. But at the end of the day, if you want to get quicker riding on the bike and you want to ride for longer periods of time, it doesn't matter if your resting heart rate dropped by 50 beats per minute. Okay, it doesn't matter if you could hold your maximum heart rate for another hour while you're out for a run, because those metrics don't matter. Okay, the thing that matters is, are you riding longer? That's the real metric. Okay, that's the thing that's important for you. So I just find that happens as well. People just try and use data to justify that what they're doing is working, even though it's not helping them with their goal. So if you would like some help with tracking your data, make sure you're tracking the right data so it's actually improving your riding, improving your racing on the weekend. I'm giving away my Race Ready Nutrition System for free for every rider that jumps on board my Motorsport Development Program. So if that's something that you're interested in applying for, I'll put a link in the comments or in the description below. You can click on the link, fill out an application, and you'll go on the list. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video today, and I will chat to you soon. See ya.